Hi, this is Karen Curry Parker. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the purpose and the pain of criticism in relationships and how you can understand criticism and stop taking criticism personally. As we talk about the chart in this particular program, we're going to look at the chart from two very different perspectives. The first perspective that we're going to look at is your own personal chart and the chart of your partner. So when we talk about the elements in the chart in this class, they will specifically apply to your unique chart, your partner's unique chart, and certainly if you have any of the energies that I'm going to talk about in this little program colored in on your chart, and that means they can be red, black, or checkered, doesn't matter, then these themes that we're going to be talking about are going to be very personal and probably big themes in your life and in your partnership. But there's another way to look at the chart too. The chart is a blueprint for the human experience and for human energy. And certainly each one of us has specifically our own unique configuration, our own unique chart. But the actual body graph itself is a map for the archetype of human energy. So when we talk about a concept, like we're going to be talking about criticism in this particular program, you might not have criticism in your chart, but because it's part of the human archetypical energy experience, you're probably going to, at some point in your life, if you haven't already, deal with the theme of criticism in your life. So anything that I talk about in this particular program is going to relate to you either personally within the context of your relationship and your chart, or it may just be an overarching theme of being human that you're going to bump into as a result of dealing with other humans at any given point in time on the planet over the course of your lifetime. So when we look at the human design chart, what we see in the chart is there is a whole energy of mastery, and mastery in human design is not anything that you're born into. We're all born talented, but mastery is achieved through repetition and practice, and repetition and practice, and repetition and practice, and repetition and practice. And if you've ever tried to be masterful at anything, whether it was an art form, whether it was writing, whether it was music, whether it was dance, whether it was gymnastics, what we say is practice makes perfect. And part of what makes practice perfect is that it's in the process of practicing that we begin to correct our mistakes or to perfect our craft through tweaking and focusing on what's working and eliminating what's not working, so that the mastery that we express becomes the perfected expression of whatever it is that we've done over and over and over again. Now, in that same stream of energy, these two energies flow together in a stream of energy. They're connected. The next channel in the whole stream of mastery is this channel from 1858, which we sometimes call the channel of judgment or criticism. And this down here, let's go back to this one for just a minute. This particular channel is called the channel of talent, okay? The next energy in the stream flow here is the energy for criticism or correction. So here we have the 1858, the channel of correction. This channel is all about the energy that is intuitively able to correct a pattern to make it better. So when we are talented, when we are practicing, when we are expressing our mastery, it's the energy of the 1858, the channel of judgment and criticism, that comes in with this deep, visceral, intuitive response and says, you need to do this to make it better, or take that away, or these numbers don't work, or there's a typo here. This is the channel that gives us that correction that supports us in expressing mastery. So we don't always like it, but it's actually a really important energy because it's the energy that's here that allows us to get better. Now, I'm going to add one last little thing to this. This seems like a little bit of a rabbit hole, but just something else to pay attention to in the context of these energies. This stream of mastery goes from the throat center down to the root, which are those two channels I just showed you. But up at the top up here is the gate 17. I'm going to throw this one into the mix because this one can also kind of be a little bit of a bugaboo, and technically it's also in the same circuit as the stream of mastery. This is the gate 17, the gate of opinions. Now, the gate of opinions has a very important job too. It's a gate that throws out possible solutions, all right? If you think about the scientific process, it's the gate 17 that throws out the hypothesis. You know, here's the thought, the theory, the idea that we need to verify and experiment with and ultimately practice and correct to see if it's true or not. The problem with the gate 17 is that sometimes when people carry this energy, they don't realize that opinions are not fact. And so sometimes they think that their opinions are factual and they forget, or maybe they never were taught, that their opinions are actually possibilities and as such have a very important role. It's the possibilities that get generated here that help us think about things from different perspectives, that give us ideas about what do we need to prove to make sure that it's true, so that if we're making a decision about the future, we have good data to make a good prediction. Now I'm throwing it in here because everything that I say about the energy for correction also applies to the energy of opinions. So if you have a lot of opinions, or you have someone in your life that has a lot of opinions, I want you, in the context of your relationships, to handle opinions and criticism in exactly the same way. Now, here's another little cool thing I want to show you. The end of this stream of correction and criticism, down here at the very, very bottom, is the gate 58. The gate 58 is the gate of joy. The ultimate expression of mastery and correction and opinions is joy. Now, that might not make sense to you, but think about this for a minute. Think about the musician who practices hour after hour after hour, day after day after day, because yes, they want to be masterful, but also because there's joy in it. It's those things that we do that are worth doing because there's joy. There's a drive to keep hammering away at it and hacking away at it and repeating it over and over again, because it's in the joy of doing it and in the joy of bringing out the most perfected expression of it that we get to experience one of the beautiful, juicy aspects of being human. So the whole purpose of correction is joy. Think about this for a minute. If you listen to a symphony orchestra and they've been practicing and they are on their game, they're all in sync and their notes are crisp and sharp and their timing is absolutely perfect. It's a joyful experience to listen to it and, of course, to be a part of it. If you read a book and it's beautifully written and it's well edited and there's no typos, it's a joyful experience. But if you read a different book and perhaps it's chock full of typos and it's not laid out correctly and the editing is terrible, you don't even actually have the drive to finish the book sometimes, because the lack of perfection, the lack of correction takes away from the joy of the reading experience. So you can see where mastery and correction and joy all play a beautiful, important part in the juiciness of the human experience and the juiciness of the experience of becoming masterful with something. Now, the next concept that we have to talk about just briefly is the throat center. The throat center is the center for communication and manifestation. And for many of us, and let me just be really specific here, for the generators, the projectors, and the reflector types, that's more than half of us. We have energy connected to our throat that requires that for us to be heard and for us to actually do things in a powerful way, we need to be either seen, invited, or recognized. Okay, so generators, projectors, and reflectors, they need to be seen, invited, given something to respond to, or recognized. If you are a manifester or a manifesting generator, you don't need the same kind of recognition. Now, there's a rule in human design. The throat center is kind of like a gearbox in the chart. If the name of the game in human design was, or let me just say this, if human design was a game, the name of the game would be, let's see how many connections we can get to the throat. Whatever is connected to your throat is going to dictate what you talk about, who you perceive yourself to be, and ultimately what you can do and how you can do it. The rule of thumb is kind of like this. The farther away an energy is from the throat, the more effort it takes to get that energy out into the world. And the farther away it is from the throat and the less energy that it has, the more it needs to be recognized and invited. Remember that the energy for joy and the energy for correction are way far down here at the bottom of the chart. For the energy of criticism to get out and be heard and be utilized correctly, because remember, it's an important energy, it has to be recognized and invited, okay? So criticism or correction, if we want to call it that, is an energy that needs to be asked for or invited. Now, that doesn't sound like such a bad thing, right? You should be able to ask people who have this energy, hey, can you help me make this better, right? But here's what happens. Our creative energy, according to the chart, in the archetype of the human, right? Our creative energy comes from our heart and our soul in the G center, and it comes from our emotions in the solar plexus. Creative energy is a juicy, complex, vulnerable energy, all right? And it's an energy that oftentimes when we put it out into the world, we have almost kind of a timidity with it. You know, you're sharing a piece of yourself with the world. And truth be told, mostly because a lot of us have never had good experience with criticism, we're a little bit nervous about going out into the world and asking people to correct our creative expression. It's a scary thing to do, and it could potentially hurt us if the person is so harsh with their correction that they rip apart this emotional, soul-based offering that we give to the world. So what happens is, generally speaking, we don't ask the people who are really, really good at correcting us for their insights. And those people who carry that innate, intuitive ability to help us make things better and more joyful have all of this correction energy that builds up inside of them, and it kind of builds up to the point where at a certain point they can't help it. It almost explodes out of them. They have to correct. And frankly, the other part of this is true for the opinion energy too. So don't forget, everything that I say about correction and criticism also applies to opinions, okay? So people who have a lot of corrective energy, they don't often get asked. They get this built up need to correct things. And so eventually they either just explode and then they really rip things apart, or they are so eager to be seen and to be recognized for their ability to make things better that they step into the correction experience not with the intent of making something better, something more joyful, but with the intent of being right, because they've been ignored, or they've been told to shut up, or they've been told that they're mean, or they've been told that they're horrible their whole life. So they build up this unconscious motivation to be right in their ability to correct. Okay? And of course, the creative people are tiptoeing around hoping that the corrective people don't find them because they don't want to be ripped apart by the corrective people, or they react, because it's emotional energy sometimes, to the corrective people, and then we have big misunderstandings in our relationships. So let's talk about the needs of criticism. Criticism is important. It's a vital energy. It's the energy that ultimately, again, helps us achieve joy, mastery, and gives us the ability to have a very solid information base that we know is valid because we've experimented with it, and makes us able to predict future outcomes, all right? Criticism needs to be done with the intent of creating joy and mastery, not for the purpose of being right. If you have a lot of critical energy in your chart, check in with yourself and your unconscious motivations and make sure that your intention in the process of correcting something is all about making a contribution to someone and not saying what you want to say because you want to be right, okay? Criticism also has to be asked for, and also, and this is important for those of you who are creative, it has to be asked for and also graciously received. This is just feedback, people. And it's feedback that ultimately has the purpose of promoting joy and mastery. So, if you want to use the energy of criticism correctly in your relationship, number one, if you have critical energy in your chart, Wait to be asked for your insights, okay? Or if you really, really want to share it and they're not asking you, ask them if it's okay for you to share your insights. Sounds something like this. Oh, I have a thought about this. Is it okay with you if I share it? Or I am thinking a lot about what you're doing right now, and I have something I'd like to share with you. Is it okay if I share it? Remember that this has to be recognized and invited to be a correct use of correction. Otherwise, it's going to feel hurtful and critical. Number 2, if you're on the receiving end of criticism, remember it's just an energy and it's not personal. So even if your partner is criticizing you, remember that your partner may have an energetic need to make things better, and they're not criticizing you. They're correcting your expression because they want what's best for you. Number 3, make sure that if your partner offers you correction, that you thank them and value them for their insights. And I would even add a 4th one here, that if you are the person who is sharing correction, make sure you do it in a gentle and a loving way. And remember that sometimes the person you love, when they're expressing this energy, they're doing this because they're coming from this deep, heart-based place of expressing their creative energy out into the world. And they need it to be nurtured and corrected with love, not with rightness. I hope this has given you a lot to think about and given you perhaps a different perspective on your relationships. Remember that the energy of criticism is all about bringing you to joy. Have a very happy Valentine's Day, and may you love each other deeply, and may you love yourselves madly.